Welcome back to Talking Story. My name is John Minton. Thanks so much for checking in on the channel. And anyone that follows the channel, you know that I have just wrapped up Mike Shackle's Last War trilogy. And I wanted to get this out there. Something a little bit more than a review. This is my 5 reasons why I think if you have not read this trilogy, you should absolutely grab these books. Not only grab these books, but put them at the very tippy top of your TBR and get into them because they are just such a great quick read trilogy. So let's just get right into it. My number 1 reason is going to be the world itself. Mike Shackle has lovingly created a world that we can recognize and at the same time feel transported to. This is a world that is steeped in lore. It is steeped in history, so that when you can start to see this story unfold of these two nations that are bordering, you start to see differences in ideology, you start to see cultural differences, you start to see historical differences, you start to see the judgmental schism that starts to permeate their lives and existence. So when all this starts to bubble up into a holy war that rages across this trilogy, you're absolutely captivated and you recognize some of the things that could be ripped from our own headlines, and it will impact you just that deeply. And this is an Asian influenced world, but at the same time, he amazingly, I've heard some booktubers say, no, it's not Asian influence. It absolutely is. If you, from all the way from the maps to the culture to the honor code, it's absolutely Asian inspired. Now, when some people are saying, I don't think it is because he has imbued these with so many other different cultural flares that we can immediately attach ourselves to and recognize. And this just sinks us deeper and deeper into the story. A couple of these is part of his magic system is explosives, ordnance. So when this holy war really starts rolling, you're able to immediately attach yourself and see things from our own history in this world, like the Troubles in Ireland, the storming of the beach of Normandy, the Blitz of England during World War II. So many battles and moments play out that we can immediately attach ourselves to through our own historical gestalt of these momentous occasions that we have lived through in conflict and combat of our own history and past. It just gives it such an amazing flavor. So even though it does reap all the benefits of being an Asian influenced fantasy world, you still attach yourself to it so easily. And that would be my number 1, the world. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is the characters. I've heard so many booktubers talk about, oh, my favorite is Dren. Oh, my favorite is Yaz. Oh, my favorite is Tinstra. They're all amazing. And I think that Mike Shackle, being a comics fan like me, has put that dividing line deeply into the earth between the black hats and the white hats. You absolutely, through this invasion and the occupation and the resistance that springs up from it, you will be able to root wholeheartedly for characters that you want to root to, and at the same time, you can hear that hiss and that boo soundtrack when the black hats walk on because, oh, the black hats wear a black hat. These are some amazing villains to root against. But also, as the trilogy goes on, some of our characters that we found so easy to root for in the beginning have to go on such an amazing journey to overcome what they have to overcome in this moment in their history, that they start to get into some of those complex and gray areas. They have to make some decisions that if you really think about it, you might make in the same situations. They're gut-wrenching, horrible decisions that they have to do. But at the same time, if you put yourself in their shoes and your family during an occupation was threatened to this level, wouldn't you do the same thing, or would you do the same thing? It's that type of philosophical, emotional, moral-based questions that you find yourself running in your own head that these books take you through. So it's such a lovely, lovely journey that the characters are complex, three-dimensional, morally shades of gray because they are complex and three-dimensional. And the villains, again, woo, so great to root against. All of these characters, even though this is a military tale of an invasion, occupation, resistance, not all the characters are military. Some of them are just regular people that are caught up in this occupation, that they have to answer a call of heroism that maybe they never saw themselves having to answer. Again, you're able to attach yourself emotionally because you can see yourself in these characters. Let's go on to our number 3, which is plotting. All 3 of these are so methodically, wonderfully plotted. Every breadcrumb that is laid down leads to something, and every breadcrumb that is laid down pays off, either in a character arc or in a huge plot moment. And there are some huge moments across the breadth of all 3 of these books. So there was one point where I thought, there's one point I thought was, I think that's a problem. And Mike Shackle actually reached out to me on Twitter and said, no, you're thinking of another character. He is so precise about it. It is so well laid down that it was my reading so quickly because I wanted to find out what happened next. I missed something. It was not his plotting, which is very, very exact, methodical, and makes it so compulsively readable. You'll find yourself just following these lines of breadcrumbs that are laid down for you, and you cannot stop. You have to go into that next chapter. Oftentimes, it's that great moment of a cliffhanger chapter to chapter, so you have to just keep turning these pages late into the night before you probably should if you have work the next day or school the next day, whatever you have the next day. It's going to make you compulsively read this. So that will bring me to number 4, and that is the pace of this. It is an unrelenting, compressed pace. And what do I mean by compressed? From the beginning of this, when they start to lay out some of our character journeys and you start to learn about the schisms that have happened between these 2 neighboring countries, the invasion happens, the occupation springs up, you are following this tale, and it's compressed. Everything happens over a matter of weeks or months, even going into book 2, from book 1 to book 2. It's just completely linear, completely compressed, which makes the pace just relentless. It is just stacked, one momentous beat on top of the other, unrelenting, will not let up. You have to keep reading until early on I was thinking, it's like, God, this is an epic skirmish. This should last for much longer than this compressed state. And then he pulls a rabbit out of his hat as far as pacing goes. And I'm not going to say anything else, but he does make it grander and broader and longer in spectrum in a way. There is a turn that happens in the plot. It is so well earned, and it is jaw-dropping when it happens. And it just, now we're getting to a broader depth of story in the pacing and plot. And I'm not going to say any more than that because I want you to be completely shocked as I was when it hits. Now, that brings us to number 5. Number 5 is, how can you not have it? And when you have these complex character arcs, you have this incredible holy war, you have this resistance springing up in answer to the occupation, you've got to have a story of sacrifice. And I mean that on so many different levels. There will be characters that you absolutely love that you started out seeing as, I don't know if I'm all on board with this person. I mean, maybe. And then their journey will bring you to the brink of an emotional wellspring happening when they are called to a momentous moment of sacrifice that they have to do. Sacrifice also in the theme of, as this story progresses and the heroes that you start following early on, and they're not heroes at all. Again, you see them become heroes. And then by the end, you see them have to stand on the edge of that abyss and look down at their enemies, look at the monsters that they must battle in the eye, and ask themselves that deep moral question: how much of a monster am I willing to become to stand in front of this enemy and prevail against them? Because I have to meet them on their own ground. I have to meet them head to head. I have to become something that I am not happy or willing to become. It is vastly different than where I started, but I have to go on this journey and become this thing to win the day. So that is a sacrifice to their inner being, their spiritual being. Sometimes it's the grand sacrifice that we see in conflict and combat. But on so many different emotional levels, you are going to see sacrifices that these characters have to take that will absolutely leave a mark on their spirit, their soul, their very lives. And when it does hit, after the buildup of this plot that has been so meticulously engineered to pull you along at an unrelenting pace, it will just devastate you and floor you. That is what happens when all of these elements are working in perfect concert, as this author has been able to pull off in this trilogy. The world, the characters, the plot, the pace, they're all layering on top of each other that brings you in some type of symphony synchronicity of story that just crushes you by the end, even though it may be in triumph. And that is why, if you have not read these yet, you absolutely should pick the three of them up, either in paperback edition like this, or I know there is a gorgeous hardcover editions from Broken Binding. And believe me, when you read them, I wish I had those hardcovers. They are absolutely worthy of being that level of presence on your shelf. So if you haven't, please do yourself a favor and read your way through the Last War trilogy by Mike Shackle. It is an amazing ride and journey. Thank you so much for joining me here on the station today on Talking Story. My name is John Minton. I have had the most fun since I've started. If you've read this, hey, hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought. If I've moved you to read this, hit me up in the comments. I love comments. It's why I started the channel. I'm going to answer as quickly as I possibly can. So hit me up. If you haven't hit that thumbs up button down there, that like button, click that. And the subscribe button, if you've stopped by a couple times and you haven't done that yet, ooh, it's so easy. Just a little click in it. Feels good. That way you can hang out with us more and more as we talk about books and reader's journey and hang out together. Thanks again for stopping by. I have had the most fun with this trilogy, the most fun hanging out with you. We will see you real soon in the future. My name is John Minton, and this has been Talking Story.